In the Fiesta Bowl, we have Boise State, the so-called upper seed, 10.5-point underdog.
Call them what they are. They are the upper seed. They're the third-ranked team in the college football playoff.
It's true. It's true.
Call it what it is.
We'll save the criticisms for the format after the playoff. We'll see. Anyway, Penn State, the 6th seed, 10.5-point favorite. The over/under in this game, 52.5. Chris, you saw the Nittany Lions in person on Saturday. You were not stuck in a party bus alongside a bunch of billionaires and missed the first hour of the game. I haven't seen Penn State in person. Let's start there. What do you see in this defense, and specifically when you look at the challenge that Boise presents with obviously Ashton Jeanty and Maddox Madsen? What have you made of the Nittany Lions?
Yeah. So first off, there's some real history in the Fiesta Bowl with both these teams. Penn State is 7-0 all time in the Fiesta Bowl. They beat Miami that one year where they intercepted Vannini Testaverde like 5 times. Boise State, they beat TCU there. They beat Oklahoma there. So like there is an affinity for the Fiesta Bowl for both these schools, and we'll talk about the bowls hosting these games in the next section.
Boise wearing, by the way, their traditional blue, white, orange that they have worn in that game several times, including the Jared Zabransky, Ian Johnson, Oklahoma game, which quite frankly, I think changed college football. But anyway, go ahead.
I agree. So the story here is Ashton Jeanty, about 131 yards from Barry Sanders' official single-season rushing record, not the unofficial one with more. Can he get going against a really, really good defensive front?
Yeah.
And I saw Penn State's defensive front in person. They just ate SMU's offensive line alive. Kevin Jennings was running for his life. Obviously threw 3 interceptions, 2 of which were just bad throws. Like, that was the weird thing about Penn State's defensive performance. Like, they were up 14-0, the defense scores, but like they were SMU mistakes more than Penn State making a great play.
Yeah, the floater that Jennings threw is like, dude.
Yeah, like every SMU drive was like they'll pick up 1 or 2 first downs to get to midfield and then they stopped. It wasn't like they were regularly going 3 and out. And there were moments where they were making some decent gains in the running game. And we know, I imagine Penn State's going to load up the box with 6-7 guys and say, make Maddox Madsen beat us. Can Ashton Jeanty, who has more yards after contact this year, like 1,900, than any FBS player has total rushing yards since 2019. Crazy stat. So that's there. Has Genty gone up against a defense as good as Penn State's? Probably not. He did go up against Oregon. He did have almost 300 yards in that game. So they have been there before, but that was also a long time ago. I do also wonder, they got a week off. Ashton Jeanty's been banged up this year. It's probably a very valuable week to have off. But that's where this game starts. Penn State's defensive line, which is really good. Abdul Carter, one of the best defensive rushers in the country, and Genty. And I'm excited for that. That's going to be a fun, classic matchup, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I think people want to say like, oh, Ashton Jeanty hasn't seen anything like this, and I think certainly Penn State's defense is better than Oregon. But Boise, don't forget, the reason they're in this spot is because the committee liked them because they acquitted themselves well in a loss to Oregon. Damien, what do you make of what we can expect from Genty, obviously against the best defense that he's played this year?
You know, I'm going to throw you guys a curveball, and I'm going to say what I would love to see from him, which isn't the traditional just hand him the ball between the tackles and beat his head over the best defense that he's probably played all year. Use him as a receiver. Get him out in space. Like, throw him some swing screens. Try to get him out on the perimeter because we know, like Chris just said, they're going to stack 6, 7, maybe even 8 guys in the box and see if their quarterback and receivers can beat them vertically down the field. Do I think that can happen? Probably not. So why not, when you've got all these people down in a condensed box, why not get your best player outside of that and just have keep everybody inside the hashes, and then try to create lanes outside the numbers, down the sideline. I mean, hell, if you get Ashton Jeanty to the second level, like, nobody's going to catch him. And if they do catch him, they're probably not going to bring him down.
Yeah.
So why not try to use space and use the horizontal game as your friend instead of just trying to beat him over the head? Like, we've talked about it. He played receiver in high school. Like, that was his first position. So obviously he's got the natural skills. He's got the hands. He knows how to control his body, catch the ball firm, secure it, tuck it away. And, obviously we see what he can do with the ball in his hands in space. So hopefully the coaching staff and the OC, they can create a game plan to where they're not just trying to force feed him up the middle, because if they do, I think that would be a huge disservice and not utilizing his entire skill set, obviously, to checkmate this Penn State defense. It's just going to be keying in on trying to stop the run, trying to keep him from getting to the second level and the linebackers in between the tackles.
I like that. The other thing I'd like to see them do, if you look at what Texas and Sark have done all year long, I agree. I like throwing it to him, getting him outside the tackles. When you've watched Boise a ton this year, it's a lot of like, hey, we're coming. Stop us.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't use a ton of misdirection. And I'm not talking about, run a counter. Just like if you watch what Sark does in the running game, there's so much eye candy and not like the crazy, like spinning turnaround plays. It's just half the runs that they have. There's something to get a linebacker's eyes away. And so even if there's 7 guys in the box, one of those guys' eyes looking the wrong way. Well, now the back's in the second level, and you're 4 yards before he's touched, and then you see if he can make a play. And obviously, you look at Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he's better than Jaden Blue. He's better than Trey Wisner. So, like, if you can get him to that second level, that can be a factor. So I think you got to do some things because you're not going to be able to just run at Penn State. But there are other things you can do.
Even if you use misdirection and have Genty as the decoy, because this isn't your typical decoy. Like if Ashton Jeanty goes one way, I can guarantee you almost 8, 9 eyes are going to be on him.
Yeah.
You sneak a receiver out the back door. You get a guy like Cam Camper around the edge, a long guy who can run, who's got long strides. Like, you're going to have an advantage. You're going to have numbers. You sneak a couple blockers out there, a couple linemen. When you got all eyes going left, you run right. And whether it's that or whether it's, using misdirection as far as Genty goes, or, using some play action screens where you fake to him and everybody drops back and you still dump it down to him, just like get creative. Like you said, like I said, don't just line up and say, hey, we've got Ashton Jeanty, he's going to run through you. No, this Penn State defense is good, and they've played other good players. They played other good running backs. You're going to have to do some things different, whether it's with Genty in the receiving game, whether, like Ubben, to your point, if it's misdirection, more eye candy, more motions. Like, they got to come with a more versatile package against this Penn State defense.
You guys know who the offensive coordinator is at Boise State, by the way?
It's our guy, Dirk Ketter.
It's Dirk Cutter, the former NFL head coach, former Boise coach. He's retiring after this year again. So interesting name there. But to that point, Ashton Jeanty got a lot, again, 1,900 yards after contact. Penn State's going to wrap up better than a lot of these other teams have before. Can he run through that? This is kind of the test of is Ashton Jeanty like an NFL first-round running back or not?
The bigger question, everyone wants to talk about Ashton Jeanty, Abdul Carter, those big-time players. Not a lot of people talking about the other side of the ball, which I think might be the issue for Boise State in this game. Boise State, people don't think about their defense as one that's had some issues. Like, they acquitted themselves well in those games against UNLV where they looked really good. They were okay against Oregon. Not great. 71st in yards per play. And you want to talk about, hey, we're coming. Here comes Penn State. Like, Penn State, pretty underrated offensive line. Obviously, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, about as good of a 1-2 punch at running back as you're going to see in the country this year. And I think, to me, I think there's a world in which Penn State is ripping off 4, 7, 12, 8, 6, and it's just easy. Oh, there's play action. There's Tyler Warren uncovered because there's 7 guys in the box with their eyes in the backfield. I think there's a world in which Penn State just scores on their first 5 possessions. And you're like, well, so much for Genty. That would concern me. On the other side of the ball, Chris, I mean, what do you see? You've seen a lot of Boise this year too.
They're also, by the way, second nationally in sacks. This is an all or nothing defense that is either going to get you for a negative play or they could give up a big play. They are kind of going all or nothing. Very, very aggressive defense. So, and that's where I think Drew Allar, he did not play well against SMU, at all. But it didn't matter because they were up 14-0 off the bat thanks to 2 pick sixes. Yep. Allar, beginning of the game, you could see it when you're there in the stadium. You can see the whole field open up and stuff like that. And you could see he might see a guy open in the flat and he hesitates, he doesn't do it, and then it's not there anymore. He was very indecisive. Almost all of the big plays he made were improvisation after broken plays. He made something out of nothing. He picked up a couple of big third down runs. He scrambled, got out of something, found a running back in the flat who hadn't been covered, and they get a big gain out of that. So if Boise State, I think Boise State can get pressure on Drew Allar here because SMU was able to. But when you get there, you have to wrap up Drew Allar. He's very sneaky athletic, which I know is kind of a cliche thing to say. He can get out of trouble, and he typically doesn't make terrible mistakes. He doesn't throw over the middle when he shouldn't, and it's a really bad interception. He's usually pretty smart with the ball. So when you get to him, you got to wrap up and get those negative plays, because your only chance is setting this Penn State defense back behind the chains. So I'm really curious what kind of pressure Boise can get.
I haven't seen Allar in person, and I really want to see it, because I don't think you can really figure out much about quarterbacks just watching the TV copy, because it's very hard to tell what they see or what they don't see. That's why I like in person. Obviously in the press box, that's like God's all 22 view. You can just see everything. I didn't watch any of the games this weekend on the Skycam. I traditionally don't love watching a full game on a Skycam, but I think for quarterback assessment, it can tell you a lot. And then I want to see what Drew Allar does in some of these big games. I think you can have a better feel for it. So I think, you talk about Tyler Warren. I don't know how, I think to me the bigger issue is just like, can Boise hold up on the front line? Like, is Penn State going to run the ball easily? If they can't, then I think the Tyler Warren question is an interesting one. But Chris, in the 12-team era, there's been a lot of conversation about the group of five, and I am a big proponent of access. I think you got to let people play for an opportunity. If they lose, they lose. It's been an interesting year where Boise gets not only the bye, but the 3 seed, just because it was a weird year in the Big 12 and the ACC. I don't think that this is going to be a referendum on the rest of the G5, but do you feel like there's going to be a lot of conversation, like if they do get smacked in this game, that we have a real conversation about the format of the playoff and where the G5 fits in it?
Yes, because we're already having it after every single playoff game this year. Did Indiana deserve to be in? Did SMU deserve to be in? Whoops, maybe Tennessee, I don't know what to make of that. Maybe that was all for moot because Tennessee did what they did. Coming into the season, my real first thought for the 12-team playoff was the group of five cannot be in a position where they're getting the number 12 seed from a team that's ranked 23rd. That would have been a really tough look. And so to have Boise State be that first team in, they would have been in as an at-large either way. They were in no matter what. That's why I'm not going to like this, the G5 shouldn't be in. They were in anyway. They're ranked in the top 10. That was happening. And so that was the best possible debut for the group of five, to know you're in the field no matter what. Because if it was the other way, you start to have these questions. But you can't get destroyed here on the big stage. It does help that SMU and Indiana also did, because Boise can say, well, what about them? You're just grouping us in with them as well. But if Boise State comes out, plays a real competitive game, I think that's really, really important just for the mindset. Because remember, this is the first quarterfinal game. This is the New Year's Eve game. So we're coming off of 3.5 blowouts and everybody already pissed off about everything. If we start off with another blowout in the quarterfinals, we're just going to have this conversation over and over again. So it really would behoove everybody. I don't think it's as much pressure as it would have been if Boise was, the 12 seed before or something like that. But yeah, you got to in this. Yeah, you got to play well. It really would help.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, let's get some picks. Damien, what do you like in this one?
Would either of you be surprised at all if I pick Boise State?
No, you love our guy.
No,
Genty.
because and you don't love Penn State either.
Exactly.
I think our guy Genty could go for 160 in this game.
I think he can, and I think 160 can be enough. Like I said, Cam Camper is another guy. He's got 837 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns on the year. He's another viable option. If they can get him the ball, obviously all eyes will be on Genty. I still think Genty can put up his type of numbers, and if you just get one more guy involved, I think you have a good enough offense to win. Then when you look at the defensive side of the ball, we have stated they can get pressure on Drew Allar. If they get a hold of him, and if they can slow down K-Tron and Nick Singleton, which will be hard, but at the same time, who does this defense practice against every single day? Oh, just so happens to be the best running back in all of college football, the best one that we've seen in a really long time. So I would expect them to have a pretty good plan. I would expect that Ashton Jeanty has been playing a little scout team running back to get his defense ready to make sure that they have all their run fits correctly. I do not believe in Drew Allar at all. I don't believe in him. I don't believe in his offensive weapons. And I'm going to say something that's also not going to shock you guys. I don't believe in James Franklin. So I'm going with Boise State.
To add to that, Maddox Madsen, by the way, we didn't really talk about it, but the Boise quarterback Maddox Madsen, he's real solid, and I think there's a chance he has
played well.
When Malachi Nelson, the 5-star recruit, transferred in from USC and he didn't win the job, a lot of Boise fans were like, "Oh God, what's wrong? He didn't win. Maddox Madsen isn't as good." No, Maddox Madsen's he's a real solid college quarterback. He ain't going to the NFL, but he can make the throws you need him to. Doesn't have the strongest arm. Doesn't have the strongest arm, but he can get it there.
And it helps. Stetson Bennett made it to the NFL for a little bit. Hell.
I mean, well, but so I think Maddox Madsen could make some plays. Again, Penn State, I don't. Yes, they dominated SMU, but SMU hurt itself as much as Penn State hurt SMU in that game. And so can Boise avoid those back-breaking mistakes? That's my question. My pick in this game, though, I'm going with Penn State. I'm going with Penn State to cover because same reason I picked them against SMU, which was when James Franklin has the better team with more talent, they win. You know, it's the games against the teams of equal or greater talent where they fall short. This is another game for them where they have the more talented team. Maybe they don't have the best player on the field, but they do have the more talent top to bottom. I'm going to go with Penn State to win.
Here's the difference to me in this one. SMU, 10th nationally in yards per play allowed on defense. I think Genty can get some things going. I just don't think they're going to be able to get stops. I don't think they're going to be able to control them on the line. I don't think they're going to need. I agree with you, Damien. I don't trust Allar either. I don't think he's going to need to do that much. I just think they're not going to be able to get stops. I think this is like a 38-20 type of game. Maybe not a blowout, but not really a super fun game either. I think Penn State wins it pretty comfortably, but Boise doesn't necessarily like embarrass themselves. But I'm taking Penn State and laying the points in this one.